Hey all, today we're going to continue our talk about parallelograms, and this time we're going to talk about special types of parallelograms. So parallelograms with even more unique characteristics that allow us to define them further. So the first special parallelogram is a rectangle, probably one you're used to, but we'll talk about what makes a rectangle unique and not just a regular parallelogram. First thing is that it has 4 right angles, so all 4 angles in a rectangle, as you probably already know, have 90 degrees, so they're all right angles. The other thing a rectangle has that makes it unique is that its diagonals are congruent. So if I label this rectangle A, B, C, D, then diagonal AC and diagonal BD are congruent to each other, so I'll write that. A rectangle also has the characteristics that any parallelogram has. So in terms of the diagonals, a parallelogram's diagonals bisect each other. So in a rectangle, the diagonals bisect each other, and they're also congruent. That means these 4 smaller segments created by the diagonals intersecting are also congruent to each other. The next type of special parallelogram is a rhombus. And a few things that make a rhombus unique. Number 1 is it has 4 congruent sides. So all 4 sides are the same length. Also, the diagonals are perpendicular. So if I draw these diagonals here, and I name this rhombus A, B, C, D, the angles that formed in the middle are right angles because these 2 diagonals are perpendicular to each other. So I have 4 90-degree angles there. The other thing that's true is that the diagonals bisect the angles of the rhombus. So angle A, angle B, angle C, and angle D all get cut in half. Since in a parallelogram opposite angles are congruent, that means all these smaller angles are congruent to each other. So angle B gets cut in half, making this angle and this angle congruent to each other. Angle B is congruent to angle D, so these 2 angles congruent to each other are also congruent to those 2. The same is true about A and C. A gets bisected, and so does C, and those 4 smaller angles are congruent to each other because angle A is congruent to angle C. A square is just a parallelogram that has all the properties of a rectangle and all the properties of a rhombus. It also has all the properties of a parallelogram. So I got a few examples here. I tried to make them nice and big so that you can see them. I know there was trouble last time. So in this one we want to decide whether or not the parallelogram is a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square. So we need to look at the information we have. All 4 sides are congruent, so that means it's either a rhombus or a square. All angles are right angles, so that makes it a square. Here in this rhombus we want to find the measure of each angle. Since this angle is 38 degrees, this one's also 38 degrees because the diagonals bisect those angles. And that means angle 1 is 38 degrees. In total, this big angle of the rhombus is 76 degrees. 38 plus 38. In parallelograms, consecutive angles are supplementary, so if this angle is 76, then angle 2 is 180 minus 76, which is 104 degrees. And then opposite angles are congruent, so angle 3 is 104. If I have a rectangle and I know the diagonals, QS and RT, then I can just set them equal because diagonals in rectangles are equal. And then I can solve for x by subtracting 2x on both sides, adding 7, and dividing by 2, x is 9. So go ahead and pause here. And try these three. Actually, you might notice that this one is the same as the one I just did, so try the first two. So in this one, we want to determine what name we can give it. Well, it has 4 congruent sides. There's only 2 types of parallelograms that have that, a rhombus and a square. And since we don't know anything more about that parallelogram, we must say that it's a rhombus. Here I have a rhombus, and I want to know these angle measures. The angles in the middle are right angles, so angle 1's 90 degrees. 4 is congruent to this one, so it's 25. This whole angle is 25 plus 25, which is 50, which means this whole angle is 180 minus 50, or 130. And that makes angle 3 half of 130, which is 65, which means 2 is also 65. So I have 3 for you to try. Do these, please, and I will answer them in class, of course. And any questions that you have about this lesson, of course, I'll answer in class when I see you.